Gentlemen, have you ever been shamed for your dominant desires? Have you been accused of being a misogynist for wanting a loving DS dynamic? Have you ever felt like you're too soft and sweet to be a true dominant, or been taught that the term alpha male is synonymous with abusive and anti-feminist? If so, keep watching, because in this video, I'm sharing 6 secrets to ignite your masculinity and dominant energy in a way that both honors and seduces women. If you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. I'm Miss Alex, and I'm so glad you're here. If you enjoy this video, hit like and subscribe and turn on those notifications so you won't miss anything new. And if you find this content helpful, you can support the work that goes into this channel over at my Patreon, patreon.com/lxerotica. All right, so here's the thing. There is no virtue in being controlling, narcissistic, or abusive. However, there is also no virtue in being passive, powerless, or harmless. Therefore, healthy dominance is not about using your strength and power to violate and harm. It's about using your strength and power to accomplish good, to defend, protect, and empower yourself, your submissive, and those within the sphere of your influence. Which brings us to our first point. Being a dominant doesn't make you abusive, evil, or oppressive. There's so much destructive material out there that lead men to feel ashamed for wanting to be strong, dominant men. The assertion is often that the desire to be a confident alpha male means that you hate women and want to control, own, and abuse them. Essentially, the argument is that being masculine and powerful, or even having the desire to be, especially in a 24/7 dynamic, innately makes you a misogynist. But as a female dominant who loves good, strong men with integrity, I heartily disagree with these shameful accusations. It is possible to have a strong hand and a soft heart in a 24/7 power exchange dynamic or otherwise. And I know many wonderful dominant men who fit this description and truly love, honor, and respect their female submissives and seek their ladies' fulfillment first and foremost. Remember, dominance is not the license to abuse, but the responsibility to care for those under your authority. Furthermore, there is a big difference between being dominant and being domineering. Now, domineering acts are abusive and oppressive, meant to control another's behavior with fear and coercion. Acts of dominance, however, are consensual and desired, meant to guide another's behavior through inducement and devotion. Think of the contrast through the lens of this analogy. Domineering is to make a submissive afraid of asking for the key, whereas dominance is to make a submissive have no desire for the key. Proper domination always taps into submissive motivation and inspires obedience through mindful and consistent acts of care, nurturing, and leadership. With that being said, it's important to note that being a sadist or a degrader doesn't make you a dominant. In other words, you do not need to be sadistic or degrading with your submissive to be a valid dominant. This is one of the reasons I always say that BDSM is not a closet to come out of, but a buffet to choose from. You do not have to look or act like any other dominant to be effective and inspirational for your submissive. You do not have to be into a specific kink or be proficient in a particular skill to be legitimate. Your style of domination should reflect your unique dominant personality, interests, and skills. But I understand that coming from years of vanilla conditioning, engaging in acts of edge play, such as erotic impact play, can include a great deal of shame, especially if you're an honorable man who really respects women. That's a beautiful thing. But that's why you need to also understand, gentlemen, that consensual impact play is not the same as physical violence or domestic abuse. Take a look here at these two contrasting cycles of consensual BDSM and an abusive dynamic. In BDSM, we always start with thorough communication, often referred to as the negotiation phase, surrounding desires and limits for play. Then we obtain enthusiastic consent, which I define as a completely mindful, willing, and uncoerced choice to say yes, and the ability to revoke that yes at any time without fear of repercussions. And by this standard of consent, SSC becomes SSCE, safe, sane, consensual, and ethical. BDSM should always be ethical, but I don't go out of my way often to phrase it that way, because if consent is viewed through that lens, a completely mindful, willing, and uncoerced choice to say yes, and the ability to revoke that yes at any time without fear of repercussions, that's where the ethical nature comes in. All right, so everything is ethical in BDSM, everything is consensual in BDSM, and only then, only after we negotiate and receive consent does any form of kinky play take place. And when the play is complete, aftercare and a debrief takes place to ensure that all players come down from the experience safely, and they can voice any praise, corrections, or concerns about their play going forward. The abuse cycle is nothing like this. There's no respectful communication or negotiation, no consent, and no care. Therefore, healthy BDSM is actually the antithesis of abuse. Additionally, dominance, the necessity of punishment does not mean you're cruel or have failed as a dominant. Your submissive is only human, and they're not going to obey you perfectly all the time, no matter how skilled you are as a dominant or how effective your submissive training was. So that's not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection of your value as a dominant. It's not a reflection on your skills of training. Yes, evaluate how clearly you've communicated and how effectively your submissive is responding to your training. Get a little introspective. Maybe you do need to correct a couple of things, dominants, but your submissive is still an independent human with free will, which means that sometimes they will choose incorrectly. So discipline, correction, and punishment are all aspects of growth. Therefore, enforcing necessary and appropriate punishment is actually evidence, dominance, of your love, of your care, of your investment in your submissive. Now, a pattern I've found quite often in working with very empathic and respectful male dominants is the belief that the majority, if not all, of their focus as dominants should be on fulfilling their submissive's sexual and or kinky desires. And while it's helpful to prioritize what your submissive needs or desires within the context of how you want it as the dominant, that strategy is not always entirely effective when we take into consideration the 4 predominant forms of arousal within BDSM: dominant arousal, submissive arousal, kink arousal, and sexual arousal. For instance, as a dominant, I can top a scene and receive tremendous dominant and kink arousal, taking a submissive through some sadistic impact play and degradation, but I feel no sexual arousal whatsoever. However, when I sexually bottom with my partner, I feel tremendous sexual arousal and even submissive arousal. But those feelings aren't exclusively connected. And there are times I might not get what I'm craving sexually due to my partner's preference in the moment, but the act of being denied what I crave sexually actually increases my submissive arousal when I'm bottoming. Do you see what I'm saying, dominants? Considering your own dominant desires and needs does not make you uncaring or selfish. In fact, attending to such desires and needs will often greatly intensify your bottom's submissive arousal as they're reminded of their place beneath you. So take the time to observe and figure out what your submissive's unique combination of submissive, kink, and sexual arousal looks like, as you also give yourself permission to lead your submissive into what you crave. So these are my 6 domination secrets for men, and I would love to know what you think, so drop a comment below. And make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because next week I'm turning all of my attention to you ladies with 6 female domination secrets to take you from shy and sweet to sexy and savage.